Hello everyone, I am Priyal Porwal. I am from India and I am currently working at Paytm Money. So with iOS 16, we have a dramatic new lock screen appearance, one which is much more dynamic, and the focus is on providing glanceable information to the users with the support of live activities. So today we are going to talk about adding support for live activities in an application to share live updates. As we have seen, many applications share real-time transactional updates with the users with the help of push notifications. For example, a food delivery application might want to share live food order status with their users. So rather than sending push notifications for each new update using the new live activities feature, we can update a single interactive notification throughout the lifetime of the live activity. So this provides a cleaner, simpler, and more intuitive user experience and makes information readily accessible. Take a look at examples of live activities supported by different applications. Content is at the focus. Live activities project our app's content that users want to stay on top of. Live activities are currently displayed in Dynamic Island on supported devices, which are iPhone 14 Pro Max and iPhone 14 Pro. For devices that do not support Dynamic Island, we still have the support of alerts, which show a banner presentation on the user's home screen with the live activity lock screen presentation. We can also show a live activity on user's lock screen, support for which is available from iOS 16.1 and later. Before we start, I would like to show demo a few of the live activities that I have created for Paytm Money application. This is the order status live activity, which allows users to track the stock's order execution status, which can be pending, successful, failed, or cancelled. The other live activity that I have created is the market timer live activity. It allows user to keep a track of how much time is remaining before the stock market closes. Users can perform any of the quick reactions related to the live activity. Moving ahead, we will be talking about adding the basic requirements in our project to support live activities. We would also go through how we can define a live activity, how to create a glanceable experience. We'll also discuss about updating and ending live activities, as well as personalizing the live activity experience. So let's get started. To support live activities in an application, we need to add the key NS supports live activities in the project's info plist file. Adding this key, this is an app level permission, so using this setting, the user can enable or disable live activities for your application. We can synchronously check if live activities are enabled for our application using our activities enabled. If the setting is enabled, we can start our live activities. We can also track asynchronously for any authorization change with respect to this setting using activity enablement updates. Both of these are available using activity authorization info object. There might also be a requirement to update the live activity quite frequently. For example, consider a sports application that needs to update live sports score using live activity. They would need to update the live activity quite frequently, even many times in a minute. To support such scenarios, we have an additional key, which is NS supports live activities frequent updates. We can synchronously check if frequent updates are enabled for our application using frequent pushes enabled. So this is a synchronous API. We can also track asynchronously any authorization change for this setting using frequent push enablement updates. This is also an app level setting, so the user can disable frequent updates for our live activity from the app settings. Both of these APIs, frequent pushes enabled and frequent push enablement updates, are also available from activity authorization info object. So that was just about starting supporting live activities for our application. Let's go through how we can define the live activities and create a glanceable experience. The support for frequent pushes is only available from iOS 16.2 and later. So let's see how we can define the live activities. We can add the support for live activities in widget extension. So if your application already supports widgets, you would be having a widget extension, and you can define the live activity in a widget bundle. But if your application is not supporting widgets, you can add a new widget extension. Adding a new widget extension with Xcode 14 allows you to include live activities. We can add multiple live activities with different interfaces and content states in a widget bundle. Next, I would like to go through a few of the key components required to define a live activity. The first one being activity content. It encapsulates the activity attributes, stale date, and the relevance score for our live activity. Let's go through these one by one. Activity attributes dictates the static and the dynamic data for our live activity. For example, this is the activity attribute for my market timer live activity. Here, timer range is part of dynamic data. Dynamic data is provided by the encoded content state, and this information can be of maximum 4 KB, so you can go really wild with it. Here, name is part of static data for our live activity, and it needs to be provided when we are starting the live activity, and it cannot be updated with time. The other key component is the activity state. A live activity can be in 4 main states throughout its lifetime. When we start the live activity, it is an active state. It can stay in active state for a maximum duration of 8 hours. When the user goes ahead and dismisses the live activity from lock screen, it enters into dismiss state. When the live event ends and we end the live activity, it enters into ended state. And if we do not want to display any stale information to our users, we can configure our live activity for stale state. For example, here I have configured my order status live activity to show stale state appearance. The order status turns gray, and I'm also showing a timer to indicate when was the last time the activity got updated. It allows user to be aware about when they are viewing stale information and can consider directly going to the application to check the updated content. The other point was about relevance score. So there can be multiple live activities running simultaneously, and even a single application can start multiple live activities. So if that's the case in your application, consider assigning a relevance score to your live activities. It is used by the system to determine what is the order of live activities that would be displayed on lock screen. This same score would be used to determine which live activity is visible in the dynamic island. Live activity with the highest relevance score would be picked up. And if we do not provide any relevance score, then the first started live activity would be picked. As this is a relative value, consider assigning the highest relevance score to the live activity that provides the most important update. Coming on to dynamic island, it supports different presentations. When a single live activity is active, it would take up the compact leading and the compact trailing presentation of the dynamic island. When we have multiple live activities active, one would be displayed in the minimal attached, and the other one would be displayed in the minimal detached. When the user touches and holds any of the compact and minimal presentation, they would see the dynamic island expanded state. Live activities are expected to be glanceable. So the available space in dynamic island is divided into 4 main regions: leading, trailing, center, and bottom. It is not necessary to provide views for all of these regions, so it can be based on your use case. Taking a scenario where the content that we want to display is too wide to appear in the leading region, we can use below if too wide modifier to display the content below the true depth camera. We can also assign priority to these regions. The region with the highest priority would take up the entire available width in dynamic island. With these, we have 4 main UI experiences to support: lock screen, dynamic island compact, minimal, and expanded. So let's go ahead and create the glanceable view for our live activity. I know this looks like a lot of code. Let me break it down for you. I'm breaking it into 4 segments. Here, I'm creating the view for the market timer live activity. It conforms to widget protocol. I'm also using the environment variable is luminance reduced, which is a new API from 6.2 onwards. It allows us to configure our UI for always on display mode. To satisfy the widget protocol requirement, we need to return some widget configuration. So in the next code segment, I am creating my activity configuration. It requires activity attributes. It also provides us with activity view context. Activity view context encapsulates the activity attributes, its content state, and the Boolean property is stale. Using the isStale property, we can configure our live activity for stale state appearance. Here, I am providing the view for lock screen and the banner presentation of my live activity. As we can see, this is the lock screen presentation. I'm also providing activity background tint. So this is the color, or you can say the color that placeholder will take when the user tries to dismiss the live activity from lock screen, very similar to the push notifications. I have also provided activity system action foreground color. So this is the color that is taken by the text in the live activity that allows user to enable or disable live activity for our application. These actions appear the very first time when we start the live activity. So if the user allows from here, it would be enabled in the app settings, and they can go ahead and disable it from the app settings directly. In the next code segment, I'm providing the view for dynamic island expanded region. Here, I'm providing the view for compact leading and compact trailing. And here, I'm providing the minimal presentation of my dynamic island. I'm also configuring my live activity with a widget URL. This is the URL which would be used when the user taps on the live activity, and they would directly deep link into the application using this URL. I am also providing a keyline tint color. So by default, the compact and the minimal presentation of dynamic island take black background color. But if we want to configure it, we can provide the keyline tint color to configure it for our application. Let's have a look how deep links are supported by live activities. So live activities interface cannot contain any interactable elements like buttons or toggles. So the entire glanceable UI is single tappable. When the user goes ahead and taps the live activity, they would deep link directly into the application using the configured widget URL. Live activities do support sublinks using the Swift UI link API. Here, I have configured my market timer live activity with two sublinks. One takes the users to positions to view today's profit and loss, and the other takes the users to the orders. When the user goes ahead and taps on any of the sublinks, it would take them directly into the application using the configured URL with Swift UI link API. Next, all of this boils down to defining a live activity. So here, I'm synchronously checking if my live activities are enabled. If enabled, I can configure my live activity with activity attributes. So this provides the static content for my live activity. I am also providing an initial content state, which is the initial dynamic data for my live activity. With the initial content state, stale date, and the relevance score, I'm providing my live activity with an activity content. And with the activity content and activity attributes, I can now start my live activity. Starting a live activity would provide me with an activity object which would contain an activity ID to uniquely identify the started live activity. Once the live activity starts, it would be visible in lock screen, dynamic island compact, minimal, and expanded state. This was all about creating the glanceable UI and defining our live activities. Let's talk about how we can update and end the live activity. We can update the live activity using the update API from ActivityKit. We need to provide it with the updated content state, which would update the dynamic data of our live activity. When we are updating the live activity, we can also provide an alert configuration. If we do not provide an alert configuration, the live activity would silently update in the dynamic island and the lock screen. But if the update is very important, we can consider providing an activity configuration which would show a banner for devices that do not support dynamic island. We can end the live activity using the ActivityKit end API. It also takes a content state. So this is the content state with which the live activity would update just before it ends. Updating the live activity with the content state when we are ending the live activity would allow user to view the updated content just before the live event ends. For example, a sports application that is displaying updated score of the live sports match might want to update the live activity with which team won the match, so that if the user wants to check later, they can directly view from the live activity which team won the match. When we end the live activity, it would no longer receive any new updates. And when we are ending, it would directly be dismissed from the dynamic island as well. But from the lock screen, it would be dismissed based on the dismissal policy. By default, the dismissal policy is default. Let's see how else we can configure it. With the default dismissal policy, the live activity would dismiss after a maximum duration of 4 hours, after which the system would dismiss it directly from the lock screen. If we want to dismiss the live activity immediately when the live event ends, we can set the dismissal policy as immediate. But if we want to provide a custom dismissal date, we can provide a date which should be within the default 4-hour window. So that's about dismissal policy. Let's see what are the options we have to update our live activity. We can do so by providing ActivityKit push notifications, or when the user changes any content in the application, we can also update the live activity in that scenario. When we are trying to update our live activities with ActivityKit push notifications, we would need to request for a push token, which we can get at the time of starting the live activity by passing the push type as token. It might not be necessary that we immediately get a push token, so we can use push token updates asynchronous stream to track when we receive the push token. We would then have to pass this push token to our push server. Push server would then use this push token to send all the ActivityKit push notifications. Each push token is valid only for the duration of the live activity, and each live activity is associated with a unique push token. When we receive a push notification from ActivityKit, we can take the updated content state from the push notifications payload to update the dynamic data of our live activity using the ActivityKit update API. We can also end the live activity using ActivityKit end API. We can also update the live activity when user changes any information in the application. As the application is in foreground, we can directly use the ActivityKit update and end APIs to update the live activity's content. We can also update the live activity by scheduling background tasks. So when our app is running in the background, we can use ActivityKit's update and end API to update our live activity. But we cannot be sure when our app would get the background time, so consider updating your live activities for any time-sensitive information using ActivityKit push notification. That was all about updating and ending our live activity. Let's see how we can personalize the live activity for our users. I would be going through a few of the do's and don'ts that have been taken from the human interface guideline provided by Apple. The first one being that as we have a limited amount of space available to display the content in our live activity, precisely 160 points height of live activities allowed, so consider showing only the most essential content in your live activity, and prompt the user to tap on the live activity to directly enter the application to view detailed content about your live event. Supporting my previous point, when the user taps on the live activity, ensure that the user lands at the right position, and they won't require to navigate any further to perform or take any quick action related to the live event. It is recommended that we give users the support to start and end the live activity so that they can only track the events that they want to stay on top of. Also, with frequent updates, it can consume more battery. So allowing users to start and end the live activity as per their convenience would provide a better user experience. Live activities are displayed in lock screen and dynamic island. So it is essential that we support always on display mode. With always on display mode, we can support that using the isLuminance reduced API so that the content that we display is of right contrast even in reduced luminance. Live activities do update for dark and light theme. So the colors and assets that we provide, consider they support both the theme. As we have different presentation for live activity on lock screen and dynamic island, we should ensure that the designs and the layout are consistent so the user is able to understand the information easily and can take any quick actions across the different presentations. To sum up, a good live activity experience is the one that is glanceable, relevant, and personalized. I hope with this talk you have got some information on how to add support for live activities in your application and would make your app awesome. Thank you so much.